Okay, final lecture. I'm back. Final lecture for the family photograph as a genre and the media that that has prompted family photography to become a genre, right? So what I want to talk about in conclusion in this particular series of lectures is twofold. One is about the awkwardness of too much truthfulness in the genre of the family photograph, or the awkwardness of happiness that is inappropriate or unhappiness that is represented in the genre of the family photograph, and the direction in which the family photograph is headed, possibly, right? There is no way of knowing where we're going, but if the past is an indicator, if the present is an indicator, where is the family photograph headed? Would be something interesting, right? In a moment where Instagram filters and so powerful technologies that are available to us for editing the truth, right? Tweaking the truth, for making it prettier. What does that mean in the context of the family photograph? That would be something which I would like us to think of in conclusion, right? And alongside that comes the automatic, I think, contemplation of what is the value, right? What do we value in this genre? So yes, that's what this last bit is going to be about. The awkward family photo of the woman who seems to have endured a lot of physical pain, right? And her children is inappropriate, I would argue, specifically because we do not expect a person with such injuries to look happy, right? Moreover, we do not expect her children to be happy around her. And finally, we don't expect this family unit to pose for a happy family photo. The fundamental question is why? Why do we not expect all this? And why, therefore, do we think her photograph is awkward or inappropriate? The production of happiness that is intrinsic to the production of the genre that is the family photo is fairly dictatorial, right? The production of happiness is very limiting in its spectrum. We don't want to see an extremely cruel person feel a genuine sense of happiness, right? We don't want to see it recorded. If we do, we usually use it as a sort of confirmation of this person's cruelty, right? So let us say a dictator. A dictator who is extremely cruel to his people. Let's use this as the hypothetical case. If that person is, say, recorded in a photograph being an extremely gentle father, being an extremely loving and kind partner to his spouse, being an extremely thoughtful uncle or aunt or grandparent or grandchild, we feel a sense of disruption, right? Because the overarching narrative about this cruel dictator is his cruelty, his utter lack of regard for human dignity, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the narrative we want to see reproduced in the archives. If the family photograph that he has or that he features in disrupts that narrative or alters it in any way or provides us with a different narrative in which the storyline features an almost bizarrely different person who is likable, we feel violated, right? Our sense of the story that is attached to this dictator is stripped from us. Or at the least, it is complicated in a way that renders us incapable of a flatline judgment. Now, I used the hypothetical extreme example of a dictator, but I would argue that's how we tend to be when it comes to storylines, right? So we did a few exercises where I asked you to come up with a story, like tell me what you see in a scene and make sense of it, and give me a bigger picture based on the little that you see. And as we had noticed, we all did a really good job, right? We did, when we started telling a story about Drake based on what we know from social media about him, we came up with a plot, right? And we do that with everything that we encounter. That is what semiotics and semantics enable us to do. That is what our memories and our experiences render us capable of doing, right? So that we don't have to sit there and parse everything anew every time we encounter it. We are able to look back in our archives, in our memories, to say, oh, this reminds me of that person, this reminds me of that time, this plot is like this one, right? So because we are able to do that, we start clumping things together in appropriate files, right? Cerebral, emotional, affective files. The family photo has become a very rigid file. We might change things around, we might add things, we might remove things, right? So from the joint family, it's become the nuclear family, from a family that doesn't smile, from a family that includes a dead body. We have now come to the stage where we have families of various forms, various shapes, various colors, various sizes, various races and ethnicities and sexualities. We have even cross-species families, right, now. But we have become more, I would say we have become more and more sedimented in the exclusion of certain emotions, right, and the exclusion of certain experiences. A battered wife posing for a happy family photo is one of the things that we've excluded from the narrative, right? This does not look right. Parents who are of average height looking up almost with bewilderment at their son who is of way above average height, who is a giant, right? And that photograph that I'm referring to here is by Diane Arbus, and it's called The Jewish Giant, right, in his family environment. That is a photograph that she has taken literally of a family in its natural environment, in their home, with parents looking up at this child. But it's not the pose that we expect of the family, right? It's not how we want to see the family catalogued. The desire to distill family experiences, but also to remove what we consider either too authentic or inappropriate experiences, is, I would argue, a fairly dangerous one. And for that reason, I would suggest that the family photo, despite how many changes it undergoes, and iterations and progresses it experiences and brings about, remains an exclusive genre. And those that are not afforded a space in this genre are also, I think, not afforded the space of voicing the need to transform the family, right? The need to transform this myth or the story about how a family should look and what a family should look like, and how a family should feel about itself and about its members. And for that reason, I find it to be a dangerous genre. Is it useful in social engineering? Absolutely, right? In terms of rendering conventions possible, in terms of making certain tweaks to conventions possible. It's an extremely useful genre. It's a genre that is symptomatic of other things that the society holds valuable. So I think in that case, in that sense, it is very useful. But alongside its usefulness, I feel obliged to drawing attention to how it is a dangerous genre. And it's dangerous especially because it gets away with looking like the exact opposite of being dangerous, right? It gets away with seeming and appearing innocent, seeming and appearing to be truthful, when in fact a lot of it is, if not a lie, at least a synthesis of disparate truths. And it's highly edited genre, right? Even though it looks natural, it's the things that we remove from its scope, by definition, make it a highly edited genre. So I would ask you to consider that, and I would ask you to respond to that. You know, what do you think is dangerous about the family photo? That is the question I want you to address in your comments and responses to this lecture. What direction is the family photograph taking? Where do you think it's going? How do filters that are available to us change the nature of the family photograph? What kind of artifice can come about, say, in social media, prompted family photos, right? Like, so we know that things that are liked are very popular, things that are responded to, if they're retweeted and so on and so forth, it becomes a big deal. Does this popularity fetish impact the way in which the family photograph will change? Like, are we going to start seeing, so there are family photographs in which people are wearing color-coded clothing, and that has existed for a long time. Even in paintings that has existed, so it's not anything new. People have posed in certain ways, right? But what do we predict will happen to the family photograph owing to or in response to the way social media operates, right? That would be something I would like us to consider. I think the artificiality of the family photograph will perhaps become more transparent because of social media. That when we will start seeing people making increasing efforts at looking, being the popular photo, right? Being the one that's most clicked on, being the one that's most liked. So because of those things, family photographs, the genre will start revealing its own artificiality, revealing its own artifice. And I think that would be a very interesting moment, because then we will perhaps begin to look to other items, other materials, other art forms, perhaps, to archive the experience of the family. And maybe those new forms will enable us to offer more comprehensive, more full and more complete ideas of family life, more truthful representations, if you will, of what a family is and what a family's time together looks like. I really do hope that will happen, because I would want those that are underrepresented, those peoples, those experiences, those emotions that are underrepresented in family photos to actually find representation, because I think every emotion that we have deserves that. So that is my lecture. I will wait for your comments. Thank you for your time and your attention. Bye.